friends, Sarah here from Sunset Bow, and wanted to do a video today on a couple things. One is a topic I've seen going around, and I'm suddenly now blanking on whether it is actually a hashtag or not, but I've seen several people do videos on the topic of what's in my tarot bag, and I think the first one that I saw was Simon from Hermit's Cave, but I've seen a couple of other responses to his video. If there is a hashtag, I'll figure that out and put it in the title when I post this. But so one of the topics is, again, what's in my tarot bag, and then the other topic, I had been interested in making a video about my favorite mini decks because I'd actually gotten a comment on a video recently where somebody had asked me what my favorite mini decks were. So I thought that those topics kind of made sense together because my mini decks are usually the ones that live in my tarot bag. So I decided to kind of kill two birds with one stone and do that all as one video. So to start with my tarot bag, when I think of a tarot bag, there's a couple of different ways I could think about this. You know, if I'm gonna go somewhere where I know I'm going to be doing readings, I'll generally pack a bag up with some full-size decks. But I also do carry tarot decks around with me all the time. So I always have decks in my purse. It's amazing how often it comes up that if somebody finds out that you read tarot, they'll want to know if they can get a reading, and it's really great in those moments to just be able to kind of take the opportunity and do a reading right at that moment. And so I always have tarot decks in my purse. And so this is kind of my little tarot pouch that I carry around with me everywhere. And so it's just in a little pouch that I got from Out of Print, which is one of my absolute favorite online stores. If you like books, you should check out Out of Print. They have amazing book cover shirts. They have pouches like this. They have socks. They have all kinds of different book-related accessories, so they're awesome. But so I keep my decks in this little pouch. And it says, "When in doubt, go to the library." It's a quote from Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. And I have always found it very amusing to keep tarot decks in this bag because you'll recall that Hermione thought divination was a very woolly discipline. So it always makes me laugh. But so anyway, so this is the bag that I always have in my purse. And I've got a couple things in here. So one of them is just this bandana that I have in a plastic bag. So, you know, if you're out and about and you need to do a reading, the likelihood that you're in a cafe or a restaurant and on a table that is wet or has crumbs on it can be quite high. So I always carry a little reading cloth, and these are just super cheap bandanas. I think I got a set of these on Amazon for basically next to nothing. And so I always have a bunch of them kind of kicking around my house, and I always carry one in my pouch with my other stuff. I also just recently have started keeping a pack of Kleenex in my tarot pouch because this is a brilliant suggestion from Little Zen Crone, because she did a great video on what she keeps in her tarot bag. And hers is much more elaborate than mine because, you know, she reads at professional events and stuff like that, and I'm not really at the point where I do that yet. But she did note that, you know, you never know when somebody's actually going to start crying in a tarot reading. And when she said that, and I was watching her video, and it occurred to me actually the number of times that I've had somebody cry in a tarot reading, and it seemed like just total genius to make sure you had a pack of Kleenex in your bag. So I started keeping that in there. And then I almost always have two decks with me in my little pouch here. And so one of the decks is the Morgan Grier Tarot. I pretty much always have this deck with me. The Morgan Grier is my favorite mini deck, and I read with it a lot, and so the other deck that's in my pouch usually rotates, but the Morgan Grier is pretty much always in there. And the Morgan Grier is just, it's a classic deck. Everyone knows what it looks like, but I really, really love this deck. I read for a lot of people with this deck, and it just, I don't know, something about it. Well, it's a really easy read for starters because it's very Rider-Waite-Smith based, but it also just has a really great sort of warm vibe to it. All of the people's faces are very close up. There's a lot of reds and yellows and warm colors in it. You know, the 70s vibe of it with like all of the mustaches and everything. It's kind of amusing, and I don't know what it is, but it's a very warm feeling deck. And so I find that it tends to not feel super intimidating to people. She's so pretty. I love her. People just tend to respond really well to this deck, and it doesn't feel super super frightening or intimidating or anything like that, I find. So it's a great deck, I feel, to read for people who aren't super familiar with tarot, or you know, maybe are a little nervous about it. So great deck. Absolutely love this one. Like I said, I carry this one around with me basically all the time. And then right now, the other deck I have in that bag is the Universal Waite in a tin, which actually just came out from US Games, like really super recently. And I was ordering another deck from them, and I figured as long as I was gonna pay a shipping cost, I might as well get this one at the same time. And it's kind of funny actually, because when I first started reading tarot, this is over 15 years ago now at this point, I actually bought the Universal Waite for myself, and I wasn't that into it. I actually bought the Universal Waite and the Radiant Rider Waite, and between the two, I decided to keep the Radiant, and I gave the Universal Waite to a friend. But I'm not really very connected to the Radiant anymore, and recently I've been starting to see just images of the Universal Waite around, and just sort of, you know, kind of fell in love again with how pretty it is. You know, it's Pixie's line drawings, but it's been recolored in colored pencil by, I believe, Mary Hanson Roberts, who also did the Hanson Roberts Tarot. And so it's just got pretty soft colors. There's lovely shading, and it's just a really lovely version of the Rider-Waite Smith, and I was super excited to see that it came in a tin, so I went ahead and I ordered it. I mean, it's just really pretty. And I actually really like the backings too on the pocket version. The full-size version has just a sort of dark blue back with a border, a white border, and then it has a bunch of stars in it. But this is a much prettier back, in my personal opinion. So, anyway, so that's the one, because it's newer. This is the one that's sort of living in my bag with the Morgan Grier right now. But again, that position is kind of, you know, rotating basis, different decks that I will have be the second deck in my bag. So I have a couple of other pocket versions of the Rider-Waite Smith, because why not? So I also have, for example, oh, the Queen of Cups is on the top. I love the Queen of Cups. So I have the, you know, Centennial edition of the Rider-Waite Smith in a tin. Again, it's the Rider-Waite Smith, just with a different coloring, a more vintagey looking coloring to it. And it's also just a really pretty version. I don't know. I love the Rider-Waite Smith. I feel like I can never have too many copies of the Rider-Waite Smith. It's just, it's a great deck. I honestly, I really love it. I love Pixie's artwork, and I don't know. I feel a strong connection to it. I always have, actually. And then my last pocket Rider-Waite Smith version is this one. This is the Pams Vintage. It did not actually come in this tin. I got this tin at a craft store, and then I just glued on the top here one of the extra art cards that comes with the Pams Vintage. I liked this image, and I liked that it had Pixie's signature on it. So again, so this is just the Pams Vintage, the bridge size Pams Vintage. I also have a full size Pams Vintage, and honestly, it's just a great deck. I mean, it's a really great version of the Rider-Waite Smith. It's a great small version in particular because, you know, in addition to the sort of vintage look of it, they've eliminated any text from the cards. So, like, you know, there's no text on the aces or the courts. There's no numbers on the pips. The majors only have, let me find one here. The majors just, wow, here we go. Oh, the majors just have the Roman numeral. So there isn't space on the cards being taken up by text, which on a small card like this, it's kind of nice. And I mean, you know, if you're at the point where you are fine reading the Rider-Waite Smith without the text, I mean, obviously for someone who's newer at it, you would want a version that had the text on it, but this one is quite nice, and it just takes up more of the card real estate with imagery as opposed to text, which I really like. Okay, so another mini deck that I really like is this one. So this is the Running Press Tarot, the Complete Kit. It's also known as the Tarot Nova. It comes in this box that it's a nice box. It's magnetic. It has a little book in it, but it's actually quite hard to open. So when I carry this deck around with me, I actually don't carry it in the box. I usually just put it in a sandwich baggie, to be perfectly honest. But it's a really great deck. It's got really pretty backings. The cards are small. They're almost perfectly square. They've got this nice sort of color coding in the corners for the different suits. And it's just a sweet little deck. It's got sort of a simplified traditional imagery to it with a little bit of a folk art kind of vibe, I guess, to the way that it's drawn. Like, look at this King of Wands. Like, how cute is that? So I really love it. I don't know. This is just a really fun little deck. Again, it's one that's just sweet. It's cute. People respond well to it. It's just one that is quite enjoyable to read with, and it's just really stinking cute. And it's kind of fun, actually. Like, here you can see the majors still have like astrological symbols and the Hebrew letters in them, just kind of hidden in the artwork. So, I mean, if you're the kind of person who knows a lot about that stuff, I would not consider myself to be one of those people, but if you are one of those people, it is quite handy to see that it has some of those extras kind of hidden inside of the imagery. So this is just a really, really cute deck. It's a lot of fun to read with, and it's, yeah, I like carrying this one around too. So that's a good one. Let's see, another mini deck that I have is the Sun and Moon Tarot in a tin. I do not actually have the full-size version of the Sun and Moon Tarot, and in a lot of other cases, like, you know, with the Smith-Waite Centennial, I have a full-size version of this. It's the borderless, but it is the full-size version. I have a full-size version of the Morgan Grier as well, although I have to admit I read a lot more with the tin version because I have it on me all the time. I also have a full-size Pam's Vintage. In the case of the Sun and Moon, I do not have a full-size version, but it is a really, really cute little deck. And I've actually, despite the fact that this is a pocket-sized deck and it was already very small, I actually trimmed it because a lot of people, like, this deck is generally referred to as a Thoth or Toth, however you say it, style deck. But to me, it's kind of a weird one because it has the Toth keywords on what typically in most cases looks like very Rider-Waite Smith imagery. And there are cases where the keywords don't necessarily match the imagery. And in addition to that, I just generally don't like keywords anyway. My brain just does not respond well to keywords. If I see a keyword, I get completely stuck on the keyword and I can't like get past it and start thinking about other interpretations. I just really struggle with that. So I don't like decks with keywords on them, and I take them off anytime they do have keywords. And so in this case, I did go ahead and trim it, and I actually really like it trimmed. The backings still look quite nice trimmed, and it's small, but it's still totally readable. You know, it's really cute. And actually, I mean, just size-wise, it's not actually that small, to be perfectly honest. Like, if you take, for example, this is my Tarot of the Pagan Cat, so this is a Low Scarabeo mini deck, and you can see that even my trimmed Sun and Moon Tarot is bigger than a Low Scarabeo mini. So, you know, so it's still, to me at least, a perfectly readable and usable size, and it's just really cute. And I love this deck, how people are wearing kind of more modern clothing. There's definitely some diversity in this deck. I really like it a lot. So it's a really fun little deck to read with. It's another one that people tend to really enjoy and kind of connect to when you get it out. So I like that a lot. So I guess as long as I'm talking about it, I will get out my Tarot of the Pagan Cats mini version. So again, this is a low scare Bao deck, and it is a mini deck. I do not have the full-size version of this deck, although I've noticed that they have come out with a borderless full-size version of this that doesn't have all of the words in the different languages, which makes it suddenly kind of intriguing. But it's a very, very cute little mini deck. I got this one to read with my niece. I love how the knights in this are all riding on different animals. Anyway, this is, and I like the chariot has peacocks. I don't know, it's just a really cute deck. But it is very tiny, and it does make me wish that the tiny version was also borderless and didn't have all the words on it. So I got to admit that I don't use this one as much as any of my other ones. Like I said, I got it for kind of a specific purpose, but I don't know, but it's really cute and I like having it. It's one of the only cat decks I have, honestly, which is weird because if you know me at all, you know I freaking love cats, and yet I cannot find a cat deck, with the exception of the mermaid cats. I cannot find a cat deck that I really connect to, but I do like this one. This one's actually very cute. So last couple of decks, I've got this one, which is the Wanderlight Tarot. This is a very tiny deck. You can see just how tiny it is. So this deck is the mini version of the Shadowlight Tarot, and it actually, when you got the Shadowlight Tarot in the Kickstarter, the Wanderlight deck actually came with it, but I think they are sold separately now. But it's a really, really sweet little deck. It's just awesome. Like you can see, it's like palm size. I will say it's a little hard to shuffle because it's so small, but it is so cute. And it's all black and white, and it basically just has just a like simplified version of the Shadowlight artwork for each of the cards, which actually in some ways makes it a little bit easier to read than the Shadowlight Tarot. The Shadowlight, I have learned to love it, and I do love it, and I think the imagery is incredible, but it can feel just a little bit busy to look at, but this is a very simplified sort of pared down version of the imagery, and so it is quite a bit easier to look at, even though it is small. And it has the same backs, actually, the exact same backs as the Shadowlight, but just littler. And it's just a really cute deck. So this is a really fun one. And it actually, you can see how thick it is, and that's because it actually has quite a few extra cards. It has these extra planetary cards. And I believe that the guy who made this deck is actually working on like an astrology oracle deck right now, and then it also has this Tree of Life card. It has some elemental cards, so it does have a whole bunch of extra cards in it, which I don't really use, I have to say, but it is cool that it comes with those. So yeah, so this is a really cool little deck, and yeah, it's one that's a lot of fun to break out and read every so often. And it's very easy to carry around because it's literally like teeny tiny. So, so that's a fun one. That is the Wanderlight Tarot, the travel version of the Shadowlight Tarot. And then so let's see. Last, I have a couple of more kind of darker themed decks, I guess, because one of the things that I tend to find is that a time of year when people are most interested in potentially getting a random tarot reading is Halloween. And so I actually just got this one relatively recently, the Bohemian Gothic. This is the mini Bohemian Gothic. I do have a full-size Bohemian Gothic, and I saw that it was going to be going out of print, and so I was kind of inclined to get a backup, but I wanted to get a mini version of it, so I got a mini version backup. And I'm really looking forward to Halloween this year, actually, and being able to carry this one around because it's such a great deck. It's got beautiful silver pattern on the backings, and then it's just exactly the same as the regular size Bohemian Gothic, but just little. And so it's a beautiful deck. It's a fun deck. It's funny. It's an easy read. It's got this great sort of campy horror theme to it. And I, despite normally not liking dark decks, I love the Bohemian Gothic, and I love having this mini version of it, so it's one that I'm excited to have on hand when Halloween rolls around this year. So very excited about that one. And then finally, the last deck I'm going to talk about is another Halloween deck, and this one I got for Halloween last year. So this is the Halloween Tarot by Kipling West. Again, it's a version in a tin. I do not have the full-size version of this deck, but this one was super fun to have for Halloween last year, and I used it a lot. And it's a great deck. It's got, you know, black cats in every card. All of the suits are Halloween themed, so it has imps instead of wands, it has pumpkins instead of pentacles, it has ghosts instead of cups, and it has bats instead of swords. And it's just a really, really cute and clever Halloween themed deck. It's completely Rider-Waite Smith, so it's very, very easy to read, but everything has this sort of clever Halloween twist on it. Like Temperance here you can see is a witch making a potion. It's so cute. I just genuinely really, really love this deck. We've got a werewolf on the moon card. The magician is an actual magician. Like, it's just, I love this. Nine of Pentacles or Nine of Pumpkins. She has an owl instead of a bird of prey. I mean, it's just, honestly, it's a really, this is actually a brilliant lover's card. Because it shows her, like, reading what looks like a love letter, but then Dracula is coming in through her window looking very alluring, potentially. So, I don't know. It's a really, really cute, clever, and funny deck. And it's a lot of fun to read. And this is another one that I'm looking forward to for Halloween to roll around, so I can pull this one out again. So, a lot of fun. And so that's it. So that's what I have in my tarot bag, as well as all my mini decks that kind of rotate in and out of my tarot bag. I have some other decks that I suppose you could officially consider as mini decks, like the Marshmallow Marseille, for example, but I don't really carry that one around with me at all. So, I mean, the ones that I showed on this video are really just the ones that find their way in and out of my travel bag and may be actually in my purse at any given time. So anyway, so thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I would love to see what other folks have in their tarot bags. If you're inclined to share, it's a fun topic, and it's like, I love seeing what's inside people's bags. I don't know, I'm just kind of a voyeur that way, but it's fun. So anyway, so if anyone else feels inclined to do this, I'd love to see it. And thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a great one. Bye-bye.